everybody.
Welcome back.
Welcome. I am so excited now. This is going to be like a whole new side to me, reviewing a game that I love. Yeah, I'm excited.
And what game are we reviewing today?
We are reviewing the Sailor Moon RPG. I'm just kidding. It was literally the same joke I made in the last video.
I know it was.
So, yeah.
Oh my God.
No, but we really are reviewing Chrono Trigger. This is the day that I've been waiting for since this experiment began.
You're aware that you could have picked Chrono Trigger at any point in this process.
I did. It took until now for me to get so desperate.
You were holding on to it.
I was holding on to it. I have a select few classic games that I'm holding on to in a crisis situation where I would just be like curled up in the fetal position in the corner if I didn't get to play an amazing RPG that I love.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, since Russ is obviously chomping at the bit and needs to go,
I think my review's done. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's go ahead and move on to personal histories and really let Russ get it out of his system.
Okay. Okay, so my personal history of Chrono Trigger, I got it when I was a kid, when it first came out. Interestingly, I don't remember the full story. My mom, I think I told her that I wanted it for Christmas, but then like I couldn't wait that long based on the time that it came out because I had seen the previews of it in Nintendo Power and I was so excited about it. And I know that I couldn't wait, and somehow it ended up that I was going to buy it with my own allowance, but I didn't quite have enough yet with like that month's allowance. So I put it on layaway at Walmart and paid like the first half of it, and then my mom, trying to teach me the responsibility of money, then waited until like the next month when I got my next month's allowance, and then that let me pay it off. And I got it before Christmas. It wasn't a Christmas present because I just couldn't wait until Christmas. And then I just played the hell out of it. I've beaten it, I don't even know how many times over the years. I own it on, I have the Super NES cart, I have it on the DS, which I think are the only two versions of it there are. Oh, and the PlayStation. There's the PlayStation version, so I have all the versions of it, I think. And it is just one of my favorite JRPGs of all time, and I play it constantly.
I have personal history too. I do. It's not as good as Russ's, but I got it. So I never owned Chrono Trigger, but it is one of those RPGs that I rented multiple times. And what's funny is every time I would rent it, I would get to about the same point in the game before it was time to return it. That point in the game is the Kingdom of Zeal. That's about as far as I'd get before I'd have to return it every time. Now, when you're playing through the game, if you're doing all those side quests and everything, I'd say Zeal's probably about halfway through. So for me, every time I played it after my childhood, anytime I got past Zeal, it was a little magical for me. For me, Zeal was always much more interesting because I never got to spend that much time there. I also own it on the PlayStation and the DS. I don't have it on iOS, but I think it's available on iOS. I've got the notes here somewhere, hold on. So it was released by Square in 1995. So 3 years after Arcana, technology had advanced to the point where we got this. Yeah, it was only technology that made a difference, I swear. Complex game in terms of story, so I actually viewed it as a challenge to try and sum up the entirety of the story in a couple sentences, and I'm pretty proud with what I came up with.
You should be proud because it's the best summary that I've ever heard.
An accident at a fair reveals a global threat spanning the life of the planet. Using time travel, our hero assembles a unique cast of characters and attempts to change the horrible future that he found.
And it all starts with an accident at a fair.
Exactly.
And it really does.
It does!
It really does.
Russ is really hung up on the whole accident at a fair thing because he keeps picturing a Ferris wheel gone awry.
I do keep picturing a Ferris wheel like bouncing across the land, and then all of a sudden it's in some kind of like time-space vortex. But what it really starts with, interestingly, is a meet cute from a romantic comedy.
It does, actually. It does.
Guy literally bumps into girl.
And from there...
And knocks off her necklace.
Yeah, bumps into her so hard, her necklace flies off. And from there, his life is never the same.
It really isn't. No.
Chrono Trigger has a fantastic story. It's well done. It's well told. It spans multiple time zones, each with their own unique stories. I love the story. The story is damn good.
It's such a tragic story because of what the characters from present day find out what happens to the future of their
There's
world.
a lot of emotion to the story because they live in a pretty happy present day, and then they go on an adventure to the past. Woo! And then they accidentally land in the future. Oh.
Wait.
And then they dedicate themselves to the quest of preventing that future. Who dedicates themselves, you ask? Why, the characters. Russ, tell us about the characters.
The characters in this game are amazing. What I love about this game and about the characters is how expressive they are, given the limitations of the Super NES. Those little 2D sprites have more, like, exude more emotion than any character, almost, in any modern game. I think modern games try to tell stories more subtly, but I think there's something to be said about the way that we had to do it on the Super NES and the NES because of technical limitations, that you have these really over-the-top characters with, like, over-the-top personalities, you know? And I just love how expressive they are. I love the cast. You have a talking frog from the past named Frog, which is very original. You have a robot guy named Robo
and
from the
both
future.
of them have tragic backstories as well.
Yes, they have very tragic backstories. You've got Chrono, who is your silent protagonist. But again, because of how animated all of the sprites are, you feel like he really has personality versus some other silent protagonists. You've got Marley and Luca, who are your girls, his friends from the present. And then who am I missing?
Magus.
Oh, Magus, who is kind of an evil wizard, but not totally evil. And Ayla. How am I forgetting these people? Ayla, who's from like the prehistoric era.
65 million
with dinosaurs.
years in the past.
She lives with dinosaurs, basically.
65 million BC.
Yes. And she's amazing. She has voluptuous hair.
She has really good hair for a cave
She has
woman.
really good hair for a
Maybe
cave
she's
woman.
born with it.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
I don't think they had like Aquanet in the prehistoric times, but
It is a pretty diverse cast of characters, and they all have their own story. Like, their stories are fully realized.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go ahead and move on into the combat system for Chrono Trigger. The combat system, I want to say the combat system isn't anything special, but it actually kind of is.
No, it is. It definitely is. It is because of, I think, because of the text. The ability to link up your characters.
Well, first of all, it is a menu-based combat system, but the combats take place... So there aren't really random encounters. You can see most of the enemies, or the enemies ambush you when you step on a specific spot.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many times you play Chrono Trigger, the combats are going to happen with the same enemies in the same places every time. But the combat screen itself actually takes place wherever you're currently standing. Your characters just kind of spread out and take combat positions, and you fight where you're standing. So there's no like default fade to the combat background or anything. And then you have the text.
Yes, I love the text. So each character has 8 techniques or texts that they can use on their own, which are attack and healing and status elements and all the usual
Elemental
things.
attacks, fire, water.
Right. But each character can also link up with another character to do like a combo technique. So every every 2 characters have 3 combo techniques together.
And they all make sense. It all takes play. It all takes.
It
Here's
takes
this ability
right.
plus this ability makes this new ability. And again, 3 for every combination of 2 that you can imagine.
Right. And then there's also a considerable amount for your maximum party size is 3, and there's a considerable amount of like triple techniques for all 3 active characters that you have in your party. And like Jeff said, it's all, they're so creative because they're all the actual abilities that each individual character has like merged together in some way.
One interesting one, just to give a couple of examples so that you know what we're talking about. If you have Chrono, who has lightning ability, and Ayla, whose techs are all fighting based, she doesn't really have any magic elements. Right. One of the combos is Chrono hits her with a bolt of lightning,
Yes.
which doesn't hurt her, but it does electrify her, and then she bites somebody while she's electrified.
Right. Yes.
The 2 of your magic casters will do, they'll hit an enemy with ice, and then melt that ice with extreme fire.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite ones is that Frog, the talking frog, has a ability, a leap slash. So he jumps up into the air and then cuts the enemy. But then he can actually like throw. Is it him that throws Chrono up into the air and then he like does this big cut across the screen?
It's one of them that throws the other. One of them is leaving a sword in the enemy, and then Chrono has lightning hit the sword.
Yes, yeah.
So it's stuff like that, and then the triple techs are more of the same. It's the combining the 3 abilities, and there's actually a lot of hidden triple techs.
You have to have special stones for several of them.
Because eventually, at a certain point in the story, your party can really get mixed up.
Yeah.
You're not stuck with having any of the same people in your party. It's all up to you. And so you can find hidden items to unlock special triple techs for special combinations of party members. I had never done that. It seems like a lot of effort.
You never found any of the stones?
I've found some of the stones,
okay.
but I never figured out who they belonged to.
Okay. They're really good, yeah. I really like the stones. There's one really funny one that's really random with Marley and Isla and Magus. No. This one is with the 3 girls. And they do this like weird little dance around the screen. It's really good. With the little sheep doll. There's a little sheep figurine that you can win at the fair, and they do this little dance on the screen with this little doll. You should really look at it.
We just figured out why Russ likes this game.
I love this game.
So let's move on to our favorite category that covers everything: innovations. Woo! So probably one of the innovations that this game is most well known for, and I don't know for a fact that it's the first, but it's definitely the first well-known game to have multiple endings and New Game Plus.
Yes.
New Game Plus is kind of a given on current RPGs. Every one of them has it, even if most of them don't really take advantage of it. Chrono Trigger not only, I think, introduced the concept, but really made good use of it.
Yes, definitely.
I don't know how many endings there are. It's something like 7 or 14 or...
It's up there in the teens. It's like 13 or 14 or...
Typically when you play Chrono Trigger for the first time, there's really only the one ending you're going to get with a couple of little variations.
Well, there can be one big variation.
Okay.
There can be one big variation.
That's fair, and we'll kind of address that because what do we care about spoilers on it?
Well, it's a 21-year-old game.
But then you play New Game Plus, and you gain the ability to just go and fight the end boss whenever you want.
Because you carry over all of your stats.
Yeah, all your stats,
however
your equipment.
strong you were and whatever equipment you had when you beat the game, you carry over into that new game. So you are strong enough to fight the final boss at the beginning of the game.
And what ending you get changes depending on at what point in the game you choose to go and fight the final boss. And the endings all make sense based on, okay, well now that means you didn't do this, this, and this, because you hadn't met this character and you didn't do this.
All the endings are based on like what is happening in the game at the time you fight the boss.
So it really talk about replayability.
It is, and some of there's such diverse endings. There's ones that are serious and tragic, and there are ones that are just funny.
Comic. There's
just
a
totally
hidden
funny.
one with the developers.
Yes.
And then the main primary ending has a good 7 or 8 variations on it that you can really just spend forever tweaking and looking at. This game also has something I love in games, an optional character, a hidden character, if you will. I don't think that he's that hidden or that secret, but he absolutely is optional.
He is hidden enough that I didn't recruit him on my first playthrough.
I have never not recruited him.
I fought him. You can.
I
guess we don't care about spoilers.
Yeah.
You can recruit him or you can kill him.
Yeah, basically at a certain point in the story, once it's revealed that that Magus is not the big bad guy, you're led to believe that he is, he says, "So do you want to fight?" And if you say yes, you kill him. If you say no, he joins your party.
And do you know why I fought him and killed him?
Because you thought that's what you were supposed to do?
Because of Frog.
Oh, yeah.
Because I knew what would happen to Frog. Would he just always be a frog?
It is the only way to turn Frog back into a human, but even then it doesn't happen in the game.
Right, and I was actually disappointed by that. I thought Frog would
just turn into Glenn.
Suddenly become human in the middle of the game, but
this game also has a lot of optional side quests. They all open up near the end, and I really think they're great. There's one where you have to rebuild a forest in a desert that I think really takes advantage of the entire time travel element.
Right.
Because basically, your party member Robo says, it's going to take thousands of years of work to turn this back into a forest again. I can do it. I'm a robot, so I'm going to stay here and work. You guys hop in your time machine and come get me in 1,000 years, which will be a blink of the eye for you. And then for the rest of the game, anytime you're in that time period in the past, you see Robo out working in the fields, even if he's in your party, because that's how that works.
And I'm really glad that you brought that part of the game up, because I wanted to talk about that part for a particular reason.
Yes.
I'll start by saying Luca is my favorite character.
That's fair.
In Chrono Trigger, the whole game would not have taken place without her.
Also fair.
She's the one that caused the time accident, but also at the fair, but also figured out how to fix it. And after you rebuild the forest, there's a moment where Luca goes off on her own, and what you may or may not have even found throughout playing the game, if you go to Luca's house, is that her mom is paralyzed. Her mom is confined to a chair upstairs, and she's kind of a bitter woman. And Luca goes into the forest by herself, uses the time key to travel to just 10 years in the past, when there was a tragic accident with one of her father's pieces of machinery that paralyzed her mother. And by using clues that you find in her room as a little girl, you can have Luca prevent that accident from happening.
Or you can have Luca accidentally watch it happen again as an adult.
Exactly.
Which is rough.
Which is a very
There's a
sad.
Scream sound effect in there that's...
Yes, the scream is...
I'm going to hear it the rest of my life.
It's horrible. But it's my favorite part in the game, and it's really what cemented that Luca was my favorite character, because I think about, in time travel stories, that exact thing. About what little moment in your life would you go back to in the past and change. And I think it's a very sweet and very, but very profound character moment.
Yeah, it takes... Because the whole point of this time travel ordeal is to save the planet. It's a global adventure. But then it also, this part in particular, it really stands out because it takes that element and makes it personal. Like, not only are we saving the whole planet, but I can save my mom.
Yeah, she has a moment to change something about her life that she has regretted her whole life, even though she was just a little girl.
There's nothing she
holds on to guilt that she wasn't able to save her mom. So in the middle of this big save the world adventure, she
takes the time out.
Takes the time out to fix a personal tragedy.
And then she's really tired the next day because everybody else was sleeping.
Right.
So she's probably
And
got a
I
rough
love it
next
at
day.
the end, because at the end, if you save her mom, then her mom is all happy and giddy
And you see
and
her
wanting to dance.
What's actually really funny is, so anytime you go to visit her mom's sitting in a chair. She can't leave the chair. She's crippled.
Mm-hmm.
After you save her, if you go to visit her, she starts out in the chair. You see her like, wait,
Right.
nothing's changed.
Yeah.
And then a couple seconds later, she gets up
She
and just
gets
starts
up.
walking around. You're like, oh my god, that was not nice. Another emotional
Those
moment.
little moments. No, you go ahead with your moment. I'm
So-
just saying it's those little moments.
This, I think, really falls under innovation. And again, I'm sorry for spoiling a really old game at this point, but there is a point in the game where the main character dies.
There is.
Chrono dies.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
whether or not you can bring him back to life depends on whether or not you were prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you got the items you needed to before he died. So you can go through the rest of the game without Chrono, or you can go through the rest of the game with Chrono.
Well, to be fair, you can get the items after.
I don't think you can get the
You
clone.
can. Yes, you can.
You can get a clone of Chrono after he dies? I
They
didn't know
would.
that.
They actually will just give you a clone of Chrono.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it would be. Now, it would be very interesting if it actually barred you from doing that.
I always assumed you had to get... I always get the clone first thing.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Still. I just ruined the game for you.
I hate this game.
I'm just kidding.
No, and so that's very interesting. The fact that there are consequences in the game that can be... I mean, characters have died in JRPGs before, but never the main character.
The point is that you don't have to bring him back.
Yeah.
It's not. It's if you don't want to for some reason, or you can't figure out how to, and you didn't
can
have a
beat the game
guide.
without him.
You can just finish the game without him and just accept that he died.
And then the last note that I've got for innovations is it's a small one, but there are no combats on the overworld.
No.
Which is kind of nice because you get to walk around the world without worrying about random combats. You know, as long as you're not in a fighty area, there's not going to be fights. I just kind of like that.
Yeah. And I like the little animations that the characters do if you just stand still on the overworld map.
They all have their unique, hey,
I'm down here.
what are we doing? Am I missing anything under innovations? Anything that this game did?
It was so innovative
in
in so many ways. It's just you could just go on forever.
Sometimes just using the password inputs were kind of creative.
Mm-hmm.
Because the passwords required you to hit buttons that you didn't otherwise use in the game, the L and the R buttons.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost innovative in the way it just used the controller.
Mm-hmm.
There's one little dungeon where you read a note and it says, "Don't make a noise or the monsters will attack." And it's fun little bits and quirks like that the game does. Especially in that sequence, there's a save point. I love this bit.
Yes, that was good. Okay.
I mean, there's a mouse. You talk to the mouse, it squeaks, monsters attack. You kick a can, it makes a noise, monsters attack. Every time in the game you step on a save point, it makes a little twinkly sound. If you step on
all RPGs.
Yeah. You don't even think about it. That's just the sound to let you know that, oh, I'm in the save spot, now I can save. I'm not next to it, I'm on it. But if you step on the save point in that area where it says don't make a noise, it makes that twinkly noise, and monsters attack. You're like, oh my god, that's a real noise!
I loved that. Yes. I loved that.
Alright, so we're going to move on to a section that's usually pretty weak, but we're going to do better this time.
Yeah.
We're moving on to music.
Music.
We'll do this part first where Russ reads Japanese names because I can't. Here we go, Russ. We've got the composers and
I feel
other
like I
things that they
should
worked
know
on.
this just because. So Yasunori Mitsuda,
Who worked on?
he worked on Xenogears, Mario Party, Chrono Cross, and a bunch of other games. And then Nobuo, I never can say his name. I know him, but I can't. Nobuo Uematsu, who is a name that I actually do recognize because he does Final Fantasy music, and that's what he's known for. He scored so many different Final Fantasy titles. Maybe all of them. Maybe all of the numbered ones.
Not all the spin-offs, but I think
Yeah,
almost all of the numbered
right.
ones.
And he does such a good job.
He does. Like Final Fantasy music, I can pick out of a lineup. If you were to play randomly a track from Chrono Trigger, I could probably not only tell you what game it was from, but tell you where in the game it was from.
Yeah.
And I don't hook on to music. As we've covered before.
No, I don't either. Neither one of us do.
Russ and I aren't wired for music. Hopefully, at some point in the future, we're going to have a video game music expert joining us to do these segments to do justice to video game music.
Yeah.
So if we're very lucky, and fingers crossed for everybody at home, this might be the last time that Russ and I try to analyze video game music. But I will say, of all the games that we've played, Chrono Trigger's music is the most recognizable, iconic.
It is.
I can hear it playing and I can go, that is Frog's theme. That is Marley's theme. And they do a good job in making sure each character has their own recognizable theme.
And every time period has its own music, its own overworld music, dungeon music, that really fits into that time period and the feeling that you get. There, it just, it's the kind of music that even people that don't really recognize music or understand it or hear it stand out, it still stands out.
So that's what we've got for music. I will say one last thing. I once attended a concert where a rock band covered Frog's theme with a flute player, and it was awesome. A rock band with a flute player playing Frog's theme is pretty awesome. Anyway, so we'll move on to final thoughts.
So my final thoughts on Chrono Trigger should be pretty clear. I feel like I always say that. I'm a very hard on the sleeve person. I love Chrono Trigger. I think the story is amazing, amazingly told. I think the characters are exceptional. The combat is fun. The music is great. Nothing about this game ever gets old. There's a reason that this game and so many others that so many of you already know the names of are real classics. It really is a classic. It really has held up the test of time. It's better than a lot of games that we get now. I was really excited to play this game. I'm glad I picked this game. It's one of my favorites. I give it an A, an A+, an S rank. Whatever the highest score we're going to do, I give Chrono Trigger. It's one of my top 10 favorite RPGs of all time. And I really don't know what to say other than that. It's really great.
I have to agree with Russ. I tend to be a critically minded person. I can tend to point out flaws even in the things that I love. But it's very hard to actually find a flaw in Chrono Trigger. It may, in fact, be a flawless representation of what the JRPG genre can accomplish. It is a fantastic story with fantastic characters. The gameplay is solid. It's a peanut butter chocolate situation in that mechanically and narratively, it is both fantastic. So I also will say A+. I'm not sure about S rank because I don't know that we were doing that. If we were, I missed that meeting. But yeah, I will absolutely go with A+, the best game that we've played so far. So that was Chrono Trigger.
It was Chrono Trigger, and it was amazing.
If you haven't played Chrono Trigger, you should. It's available anywhere you can imagine. I do believe there's an iOS port of it.
There is.
The DS the DS port is pretty good. It's got an extra dungeon, but
yeah,
the extra dungeon doesn't really add anything.
No. It actually kind of contradicts the sequel. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll probably talk about the sequel one day. We talked about it briefly in a vlog. Russ and I are both fans of Chrono Cross.
Yes.
But that's all we've got for Chrono
definitely
Trigger.
go play Chrono Trigger, even though we spoiled a substantial amount of it for you. It's still totally worth playing.
You know what? We knew the entire plot of the game when we sat down to play it because we'd done it before, and still, it was a very enjoyable experience. And surprisingly, it actually goes a bit faster than you think it would. Mm-hmm. Because mentally, you kind of expect a 40-hour game for a JRPG these days. That's around the standard. And even doing all the side quests and everything, I knocked Chrono Trigger out in about 20-25 hours.
Yeah.
And that was, no cheat codes, no nothing. Just playing the game
Right.
straight and unlocking not everything, but most things.
Well, that's part of its charm. Unlike Breath of Fire, it just gets to the point.
Yeah. In that 25
It
hours...
doesn't waste any time on things you don't care about.
I maxed out everybody's tech levels. Like, I had everybody's abilities leveled up. So, it's definitely worth 25 hours of your time.
Definitely.
Next up, it's my turn to pick, and...
I can't wait. I don't even know or forgot what you said, so this is going to be legitimately a surprise
I've said
to
it
me.
a couple of times. Really? I think I've said it today.
Well, I've been so excited about Chrono Trigger.
So, we're going back to the Game Boy
Okay.
for Final Fantasy Legends.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Final
Okay.
Fantasy Legends 1.
We'll see, because I picked Breath of Fire, and
Yeah.
I thought I was fine with that. But
Final Fantasy Legends 1, which is also the first game in the Saga series. So,
because thank you, Square Enix, for naming all your games Final Fantasy until the late 90s.
yeah, the crossover between Final Fantasy Adventure into Secret of Mana, except Chocobos and Moogles.
What's a Chocobo?
Don't do this to me. Chocobo?
I think he's talking about Chocobos.
That's what I said, Chocobo.
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 They came from them and the Moogles. Moggles.
Yes. No. Correct.
Came from Final Fantasy Adventure, but then became a part of the Final Fantasy series, even though Final Fantasy Adventure is actually part of the...
They didn't come from Final Fantasy Adventure. I have a lot to explain to him
Oh
before
my
we
God.
do the next review.
Just give me the name of the Final Fantasy Adventure series. The
Second Densetsu.
Thank you. I'm just pointing at you to do the Japanese stuff for me. Just know your role. All right. We'll see you guys next
We're like
time.
an old married couple. Bye.
You make me drink. Campfire.
Fighting evil by moonlight.
And have me with my appers ring. All right, let's do this.
Winning love by daylight. Never running from a real fight. She is the one named Sailor Moon. I'm introducing a new theme song.
All right.
She will never turn her back on her friends.
No, sing another verse. It's fine.
She is always there to defend. She is the one on whom we can depend.
Is he crazy?
Okay, can we start now? And cut. And cut. And cut. Wait, don't cut! What are you doing?